All right. So in the previous lecture, we have figured it out how we can log in the user and redirect it to the dashboard. So this is where we have left off. We have dump and died the user, and we have just let to see what the record we are having from the authenticated user. Alright, so as I previously mentioned that we are going to implement the queues and listeners, events and listeners functionality here. So when this is going to happen is basically if we come back to the this portal on our main page where we are letting the users to create an account. So what I want is that after filling everything the form, the email should be sent to the user containing his account details or whatever details we would like to send to him. Or maybe we can even send the email verifier. So that we will do basically on the later stages on the next stage. Right now we will just send the user the email so that the user can see his personal information. We will also implement the email must verified middleware. So that will work if the user has not verified his email. Okay, so how will that work is basically once we so first of all we need to configure our SMTP credentials, the mail credentials in our Laravel. So how we can do is basically simply go to the mailtrap.io. I think you guys have already been familiar with this. So what we can do is basically just go to the inbox. If you don't know how to set it up, just create an account there, and it will automatically land you to on this sandbox and inbox pages. So go to the inbox, and you can see a bunch of options here. So I will select the Laravel 7 Plus, and I will copy these credentials. And once copied, I will come to the env file, and I will paste it here like so. And I just also want to upgrade the mail address from to say let's say um, info at jobster.com. All right, so one more thing that I have did here in our guest blade is that I have called this thing using the env. Now what will happen is that once we will deploy our application, we will obviously need to create a cache for everything in our application. So with that our we need to also set the cache for our config files. So if we cache our config files, that env does not will not work. So we will not see the app name if the configuration we set on the production server. So instead of that, what we can do is basically we can use the config like so config, and inside the config we can pass. So let's come down to the config.php where it is. Let me see app and config and app.php. All right, so here is the name of the app name that we are checking out, so that should be implemented here. So I will say app name. What is this name? So this it's only the name. So if I come back to my browser and reload the page, and yeah, everything still works. But if I use the env over here, and if I run the php artisan cache config or config cache, so env will not work here. So that's why there's the one tip I had decided to mention it here. So that's the one tip: you always need to use the config instead of the env files. All right, so let's go back to our main functionality that we needed to implement. So we have set up our mail trap, and what else do we need to do is basically we need to create some sort of event and listeners, and that should be attached to each other. So I will say PHP artisan make event, and I will name it as um, user registered event. Let's go. and we have created it. So I will come, so in order to check where it exists, so inside our app, HTTP, sorry, inside our app and the events. So you can see it's here, the events one. Now, what this does is basically it contains just the construct method, nothing else, and we can pass data to this construct method. Um, what else we need is to make the listener. So events trigger, and once the events trigger, we also need to set up the listener so that the listeners can listen to what event has occurred and they can perform the functionality, whatever the functionality we want to give them. So let's go ahead and create PHP artisan make listener. And what I want to do is basically send user registered email, and the event that it should attach to it should be user registered event. All right, so it has been created. So let's go ahead and see how it works. Inside our listeners, we can see the send user registration email. And let me just quickly refactor this code. And what it does is basically it accepts two, it has two methods. One is the construct, and the second, you can see the handle. It automatically injected the event for us inside this function. So what we can do is basically once the user has been registered, we need to dispatch the event so that the event can perform functionality and pass it to the listener, and listener can do the functionality rest whatsoever it is. So how we can do that? So we need to go to our register controller, and inside our register controller we have this method here. When the user account has been successfully created, and we redirect it back to the page. So in this if statement we need to send or dispatch the event. So how we can do that? And before that, what functionality the event should take? So all right. So to dispatch the event, we need to call the event class like so, and you can all see that it automatically, the PHP storm automatically populates the methods for me. I will say dispatch, and inside the dispatch, I want to send the user object to this event. And what it will do, it will basically accept the argument as $user. And what I will do is basically, or maybe we can pass in the user instance, but I will make it as the user, and I will create a public function $user, which is accessible, which should be sorry, not public function, it should be the public variable. All right. So we also need to set that it should behave like an object. So what I need to do is basically $this user, and inside this user I will pass this user, the newly created user. All right. So what it will do is it will basically pass this user to our this listener. So this event will pass every data that comes here to this listener. So what it does is basically, let me dump and die and check it out as an event. So what will it do? Let's see. So if I come here and reload the page and just fill the form and submit, it just redirects us back. What happened here? Let me check why this did not work. So inside the register, we are dispatching the user, and inside here we are just passing it to the this one, and it should work. It should dump and die it. Let me see what is going on here. All right, so the issue is that we are passing this an object, but we are declaring this as a variable. So I will say user. So that how this should work. And if I come back, create an account, fill this form, register, and all right, so it says must be a type of user. User given called in this one dispatchable. Let me see what the issue is. Alright, so we need to import the class of the user, and that's about it. Reload the page, and it says duplicate entry violation. Alright, so we also need to set up inside our register, and inside this we need to set the email to be as unique, and that's how it should work, I think so. Reload. Unique. Okay, so validation rule unique requires at least one parameter, so it should be unique at email. So the column name it is expecting. uh it says job portal email table. Hmm. So the issue is here is that, okay, so it is referencing the table, so it should refer to the users table. Reload the page, come here, and it says email already exists, so just go ahead and reload. Again, fill the form, submit it. We still don't see the dump and tie over the user here. So what's going on here? Let me check this out. I see what the issue is. So the issue is basically that we have created events and we have created listeners. So what we did not do here that we should implement is basically we need to register these events and listeners. So where we can do that inside our event service provider. So you can see we have one event and register against it. So we need to do more here. So what I will do is basically user registered event and the class, and it should catch the sent user registered email. This is what we have created here. All right, so this should work now. Create new account, form fill, register, and you can see that we have the user here. Where it is the attributes, this one. So we have name, email, password updated at, and this one. All right, so everything works here. So what else do we need to do is basically inside the dump and die. All right, so we have dump and died here. What else do we need to do is basically we want to send the email to the user. So in order to send the email to the user, what we need to do is basically just clear this out. PHP artisan make mail, and I will name it as um, account information. Maybe I think so. That's perfect. So what I will do is basically open the, okay, so where this file exists, it will exist inside your app and mail. So account information, and like so it's pretty simple here. So just a little bit of refactoring the code like so, and what I need to do is basically just pass the data to this email function here. So what I will do is basically we can create an array or to pass the data that we want to send to the user. So what I will do is basically I will create an array of let's say the we have what we have inside our this function. We have name, email, and password. So I will say name. So just to stick to this, we will say name to name, and we want to only send the name and email. Later on we can also pass the password to this one. Right now we only want to send the email, and we want to pass this information to the mail object. So this is kind of a hierarchy that you should need to understand how it works. The way it works, it's called first the event. So event will pass the data, whatever the data we pass to the event, this one. Let me close these two options, and the even we file as well and the web as well. So this will pass the data to the listener, and the listener will handle the request, and it will pass to the mail object. So what we need to do is basically we should say mail and to, and inside the to we need to send this mail to the user. So obviously we need to grab this email here. uh, this email we have just set password with email, and this email to the user, and we should pass in the new sorry, which the which email, this account information email. So we should say new account information, and inside this I will pass in uh, inside this function I will pass in the data, like so. This should work. All right, so it's not to, it's to and sent. uh, this should call this send variable, like so. Now let's come to the account information here, and we should accept this as the let's say data, and we will say public uh, dollar data, like here, and I will say dollar this data equals to data, this one, like so. So we have the view here. What we need to do is we basically pass the data to this dollar this data, like so. All right, so we can pass the data like so, and what we need to do is basically we need to have some kind of view file that we need to send. Let's go ahead inside our app, resources, like there, this is one is the resources, and here the views. So we need to create the email. So email directory, emails, and account information dot blade. And what I'm going to do is basically just split it out the name and the email just for now, and everything it should work here. So we are sending this to the user, and we need to, all right, so we have not attached the subject, so let's say subject, and view it should say uh, account information, like so, and everything should work. uh, let's go ahead and give this a try. All right, so come to this page, the register page, fake fill this register. It says user registered event name. All right, so there is an issue here. We need to fix this out. This should be like user. So since this is attached to the user, so this is how this should work. Reload the page, and it will say email already exists. Let's again create this. Again, we are at the email. Okay, so this one, we forgot this one here, like so. Reload the page, again fill up the form and register. Alright, now it says view does not found. We also need to update the view inside the emails, like so. Remove this one. I think so that's everything is good to go. Let me check this out. Name and email. We are passing this here, and this is accepting. Okay, so this should be accepted as array, and I think so we should, what we should do is basically just pass this as a user object, and just give this try, and inside here what we need to do is basically send the pass in the data, and where we have the account information email. I think so this one, yeah, this one. Let's bring it here, and I will say user name and user email, reload the page, fill the data, register, and there we go. So it's working now. Now you can see that the email did went through. It should, yeah, here. So we are now getting the name and the email here inside our mail track. But you have noticed that the page took about 5 seconds. Now let me go ahead and do this one more time. Register 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or maybe in that case, in my case, it took more than 5 seconds. So the email did actually send, but the user had to wait for maybe 5 or 7 seconds. So what I want here is basically I do not want the user to wait for this thing, and this actually should right go away into our queue section, and everything Laravel should handle this. So in order to make this for queue workable, what we need to do is basically inside our listener, this one here, this is the email one. Inside our listener, what we need to do is basically we should implement the method. It's already loaded here. This one should queue, so we should implement should queue. Now, it will do is basically this will not work. Now, what do we need to do is basically we need to create the PHP artisan queue table. All right. So this has created the queue table for us inside the database migrations, and this is the jobs table that it has created. So what we need to do is basically one more step: PHP artisan migrate. There we go. It has created the table for us. Now, in order to work, in order to have the queue work, the queue should work. So what we need to do is basically PHP artisan queue work. And now what it will do, it will basically see what processes are inside the job table, and it will run them behind the scenes. So let's go ahead and reload, sorry, go to our register page, form fill, register, and it's taking some time again. It came back. Let me see what happened here. uh, it should implement the queue, and what else we are missing here. All right, so basically we are doing everything perfect. Now the issue is that if we come to our env file, we have not set the queue driver. So by default, the queue driver is where it is. Let me see. It should be with the name of sync. Let me see where it is. Yeah, this one, the queue connection. So the queue connection here is sync. We need to set it up for the database. This is what we were missing. And what else do we need to do is just close this one more time, and this one, run this thing again, just run this command, come to our front end, create an account, register, and there we go. Now the page reloaded, and you can see that the job is here. Now once the job will be processed, so the job is processing and it's done. You can see that it's done. This will automatically go away from here, and we can see that we are receiving an email now. All right, pretty awesome, very perfect. All right, so we have actually, so this is the one email that we received right now. uh, we did ran into some problems, but at the end the thing should work. So this is how the queues, the events, the listeners, and the mail notifications work inside the Laravel. Let me give you a quick brief of how it worked. So first we just created an event, then attached it to the listener, and then we created a mailable account, and then we dispatched it from here. All right, so that's about it in this video, and I will see you in the next video.